Good afternoon. I think we're standing between you and a nice glass of wine, so we'll try and not keep you too long. You heard earlier today from my colleague that in Vodafone we have a sustainable business framework that has 3 pillars, and one of those pillars are the economic empowerment of women. Today I'm going to focus mainly on the internal work that we do. Before I get going, I'd just like to ask you a few questions. If you can just raise your hands. So who in the audience would like to have more fun at work? Okay, there's some people didn't put their hands up. You are very odd. Who in the audience would like to serve their customers better in their businesses? Okay, a few more, good. Who would like to have more innovation? Okay, now there's a few people who still haven't put their hands up, so this is the last test. Who would like to make the world a better place for their children, for their sons and their daughters? Okay, at that point nearly everyone put their hands up. So these are all the reasons why gender equality is important, of course to Vodafone, but in reality to the world. I'd just like to share a short video from our CEO, Vittorio Caleo, who I think for many, many years, first as a CEO in Italy and now as the CEO of Vodafone, I think really takes this subject very personally and very seriously. And let's just hear from him for a moment.
I have a dream or an ambition, which is to have the whole of Vodafone, not just pieces of it, as the best place, with a reputation for being the best place for women to work, become managers, become executives, become senior executives. As simple as that, the best, not one of the okay, not one of the best. I was incredibly fortunate because I started my life like that, because we started the company, which is today Vodafone Italy, and we were very young, so it was almost too easy, I have to say, because by definition we were the best, because it was the only place, and it was young, and we were 50-50, and it was easy, you know, to be honest, it was not just and I saw how nice it was and what a better environment is. So I think it's doable, I think it's great, and my ambition is for Vodafone to be there. I want every girl or woman out there, or lady, whatever you want to call it, says, that's the place I want to work.
So I'm going to share just some examples of the sorts of things that we've been doing inside Vodafone to try and deliver, I guess, the dream, not the nightmare that we heard about earlier, but the dream that Vittorio Caleo has had. And actually, it's not just him anymore, because the great thing about Vodafone is actually on our journey, more and more of the leadership in the organisation has caught the virus. So more and more people believe in this as being the right thing to do for the business. So what have we been doing? We've focused on leadership and targets, and that, I guess, was where we started. But then on the journey, we realised that wasn't enough, and we realised, in addition to small things that we were doing, we as a company had to say, okay, what are the game-changing things that we could do that have an impact inside our company, but also potentially an impact in the world? And you can see some of those there. So just starting with targets. So pretty much every boardroom of every company, certainly large company across the world, will be looking at figures like these around gender equality. And what you see there is the journey that we've been on for directors within the organisation, so the senior leadership, but also the total management population. And it's really hard. Yeah, so day in, day out, trying to move that dial, and even with all the effort and all the senior leadership commitment that we have in Vodafone, it's a really, really tough ask to get to. Now, I think the thing that was very interesting for me about Vodafone was actually, as far back as 2008-09, we publicly declared our targets. I think we were one of the first companies in the world to do that. I think we actually won awards at that time for being brave enough to say, by 2020, we want to have at least 30% of women within our senior management populations, within our management populations, with an ambition then to keep going on the journey. And on our journey, we have looked at targets in so many ways. We've got lots of men in our company, and men like targets, and so in the early days we put a lot of effort and energy into working with the men in our organisation in a way that worked for them. So we had +1, which meant every year you get one more senior woman into the team. We did that for a while, and then it was, okay, let's focus on graduates. 50% of our graduates for the last 4 or 5 years have been women. We looked at the board, 25% of our board are women. We've now started to look at, okay, which markets are actually already there, and 10 of our markets, our countries, are at between 30 and 50% women in management, which is fantastic. So lots and lots of different ways to try and captivate the imagination about how we have targets and how we keep moving forward. But we realised that that wasn't enough. And so in 2015, we stood back and we said, okay, we have 35,000 women in our organisation. For most women, they will at least think about maternity, and for many women they will then go on to have children. And we said, actually, we think we need to do something that no other company in the world has yet done, and that is to create a minimum standard in maternity. We did research, we understood what was out there, what we thought we needed to do to make that step change, and have a listen to this.
A British telecommunications company is empowering its female workers
with a new maternity leave policy.
Vodafone is introducing a worldwide maternity policy.
How do you afford it when someone comes back and they are working for 30 hours, but you're paying them for the full 40?
There's a short-term cost, but there's a medium-term benefit.
Vodafone is rolling out a maternity leave policy.
The company Vodafone is implementing a global policy that is really the first of its kind.
Well, there were two proof points for
Vodafone is certainly taking a step in the right direction.
It's about retention at the age where women go and have families.
Worth the cost.
I don't know anything about Vodafone. I do applaud what they're trying to do.
So what was amazing for us, we just did not expect to get that reaction. And at one level that makes me really proud, at another level that makes me feel quite disappointed really that the world gets so excited about this, and that just says we've still got an awful long way to go. We've implemented this across the whole world in the last 6 to 12 months, and the great news for us is 1,700 of our women have already benefited, and anecdotally all of the conversations are positive about the impact that this is having. And interestingly, it isn't just women who feel positive about this policy, but actually most of the men in our organisation think it's just the right thing to do as well. So that was a game changer for us within the organisation. But again, we realised that just having policies isn't enough. And we've started to hear about unconscious bias and inclusion. And we said, okay, so the next game changer in the pipeline for us is a real focus on unconscious bias. I'm going to show you a video which is about, I guess, unconscious bias around maternity. Now, this is an example of about 15 videos that we have shot and are using to have conversations about unconscious bias. Unconscious bias is the small things that we say or do that just keep undermining women, other minority groups, whether that's sexual orientation, age, disability, culture. And this, the idea of it being a virus almost, an asbestos, is just everywhere. And often, people trying to do the right thing, but just not thinking about the impact of the things that they do or say. So again, just listen to this example.
We discussed the team and how tough it's going to be with her leaving us. No, we're going to be lucky if we meet our targets this year now.
How tough it's going to be for the team. You'll be lucky to make your targets. Ravin, how encouraging does that sound?
By hearing you say it, not very. But it's true, it will be tough.
Yeah, I agree. But it could be Stuart or anyone else on the team who leaves with even shorter notice for one reason or another.
True. But she may not even come back. I've seen it happen so much in my experience.
But what if she does? We want her back committed, hungry, ready to take on the world. And it's our job to give her that message before she goes. Otherwise, she could take all that energy elsewhere.
I think I may need to schedule another meeting with Maya. Look, do you have time to go through this a bit more?
Yeah. Why don't we head out for a coffee and get some fresh air? Yeah?
Well, somebody must have put something in Ravin's coffee. After such a disappointing meeting about my maternity leave, he then took me out for a walk and we had a really good conversation. He wanted me to know that he really valued me and the work that I do. That's the reason he bent so down in our meeting, because he was going to miss my contributions while I was gone. We also discussed the business, where it was going, what my role could be in that. It was exciting stuff. And then during my maternity leave, we kept in touch throughout, which was really good. It helped me stay on top of things, stay in the loop, and then when I got back, my first week got off to a great start.
So the unconscious bias that her manager had there was, I've had previous people in my team that have gone on maternity and haven't come back. So therefore, I'm not going to try really hard to convince this lady in my team to come back. And he thought he was doing the right thing, but actually it just came out all in the wrong way. And these sessions have been running across Vodafone globally, and very simple, but they then facilitate really powerful conversations. The thing about unconscious bias, it never goes away. So you have to keep working it. So this is now a life's work for Vodafone. We will keep having conversations about unconscious bias. The third game changer for us is about how we make gender equality positive and engaging. This is a marathon, not a sprint, and you've got to take people with you. We are convinced that we are probably the best in the world at celebrating International Women's Day, which for us is actually more like a week. Now, the thing in Vodafone is we have fantastic technology. We're a communications company. Our employees can work anytime, anywhere. So the flagship of that week is a global video conference where 100 offices connect and thousands of people either in those offices or outside those offices connect. And we're able to talk about what we're doing and what we plan to do in a really positive, celebratory way. And these are rooms typically nowadays filled with men and women talking about how we move forward gender equality. During that week, we have inspiring speakers. You can see there Malala. One of the other ladies is a NASA scientist. We do walks. We have conversations about how we move this agenda forward in a very constructive, very, very positive, upbeat way. And finally, I think this year for the first time, we took during International Women's Week, gender equality actually out to our customers. So in Italy, we actually ran a advertising campaign, an above-the-line advertising campaign, talking about gender stereotypes. And also on that day, we gave away free data to both men and women. So again, a company not just looking at it internally, but also starting to see the benefits of taking these messages out to their customers. And finally, the last game changer for us to date has been our work with the UN on he for she, and you heard about that a little earlier. 10 CEOs, 10 heads of states, 10 universities, all working together for gender equality. And we found this proposition really interesting because it played into our keeping it really positive. It filled in a gap that we had, which was how can we include men more constructively in this campaign, and he for she did that. So it's all about men and women standing together for gender equality, and we think it's cool, it's energetic, it's a very positive way of moving forward gender equality, and we like it a lot. And typically what you will have is commitments, which you can see there on the left-hand side, and then symbolically we ask people to sign up to stand shoulder to shoulder with us and the other people that are involved with the UN in supporting gender equality, and I think some of our colleagues have been asking you to do that as well. We like this a lot and look forward to keep working with the UN on it. So those are the sorts of game-changing things that we have been working, some very public, some within our organisation. So as we look to the future, what are we thinking about? I think three significant things. Leadership just never goes away. It is, the secret ingredient. If leadership want to move this forward, it moves forward. If they don't, or they're paying lip service to it, in reality, it doesn't. But you'll have all read articles about fatigue, and when I think the CEOs started getting involved in this a few years ago, they thought they'd set some targets, and within a few years they'd have solved the problem and it would all be great. And 5 years on, they haven't solved it. So how do you keep people interested and engaged as we keep moving forward? And for us, actually, it's about broadening the agenda. So Balázs is here today from the Czech Republic. He's our CEO. And what you'll see is Balázs not just talking about gender equality anymore, but talking about other subjects such as sexual orientation. And we're super proud of the leadership that we're showing here in Czech on what is a more controversial subject. But we believe if we can be inclusive to everyone, that also benefits our move forward with gender. So we really applaud the work that the Czech team are doing. This whole area is getting more scientific. I think the low-hanging fruit is gone, and companies need to think more carefully about how they move forward gender equality. For us, we're looking at segmentation, so no longer do you talk about women, but actually we're using marketing techniques to look at what do young women want, what do mothers want, what do older women want, and therefore what do we need to put in place to attract and retain women at different stages of their life. Also, debiasing HR processes. There's a lovely example of orchestras. In the 1970s, in orchestras, there were only 5% of women in orchestras. And someone had the fantastically brilliant idea of saying, why don't we do the auditions behind a curtain? And what has happened as a result of that, we have now moved in 2016 to actually over 40% of the people in orchestras being women. So for us in Vodafone, we're trying to figure out what is our curtain, that we can put up, particularly in the resourcing and the promotion processes. So is it blind CVs, eradicating panel interviews, more structured interviews, making adverts or job descriptions gender neutral, all these little things that are just undermining our ability to actually move forward in the way that we want to. You heard right at the beginning, we are incredibly ambitious in this space. We see it as a business priority, and we want by 2025 to be the best employer of women in the world. And we are going to do lots of serious things to make sure that we achieve that. Thank you.